This bag is a really great project to add some embroidery onto. If you're new to embroidering or if you've never embroidered on cork, I have some tips for you just to show you how to be as successful as you can be. So you'll see on this sample, which is still in progress, I haven't put the lining in yet, that I've done this embroidery on the front. I did skip the pocket. You could embroider the pocket if you want, or you could even turn this over and I could have put a pocket on the back as well. But I decided just to go ahead and add some fun embroidery. So what I did is I finished my outside piecing first. I have no interfacing because it's cork. And then I went ahead and I did my embroidery. If this fabric was pieced and it was an actual cotton fabric, you would go ahead and piece that. You would skip the interfacing. You'll use your stabilizer for the embroidery, and then you can add interfacing afterwards. I like to do it in that step. I just find it a little bit easier to do it in that order. So for the cork, there's not going to be any interfacing one way or another. So I just pieced everything, got it all top stitched and ready to go. And I chose this design because it's a little bit more open, and that's something you want to look for in a cork design. When it comes to cork, it holds up really well to embroidery. It's very easy to embroider on. I have no issues with my machine, but I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything that's too dense. If these flowers, for instance, were completely filled in, or these little pieces right here, there are more of those and lots of those, what can happen is you can tear through the cork. So you want to look for a design that's not super, super dense. And if it is really dense, make sure that it's large enough. In this bag, I have 6 inches in between my handles. So I have that much space, and then I have the height of my bag to work with. You'll see that down here, I did cover up just a little bit of these 2 petals with my handles because I was a little bit off center, but oh well, I'm fine with that. It's covered just a little bit on this side too, but I didn't want the majority of the pattern covered. So I played around with sizes and I checked to see which one was going to work best. I have to say, in the beginning, when I got this embroidery machine, I didn't really know what to do with it because I am not into the traditional embroidery. I don't really like polyester threads. I find them a little bit too shiny for my liking. And I thought you had to embroider with polyester. But all of this right here is all 50 weight Aurifil, which I have right here. I've grabbed some colors for today's project. I have some pinks and purples as well. And I just grabbed a whole bunch of these. They're all cotton threads, all 50 weight, and they embroider really nicely. So I've started to get my machine set up for embroidery, and I'll show you what I've done so far, and then we'll put it into embroidery mode and find a design. So what I did first is I already put on my P embroidery foot that's already attached here. I did put in some pink thread. I don't know if that's the color I'll start with, but it's in there for now. And I changed out my bobbin to a nice full bobbin of the Janome embroidery thread. That is a white thread that's a lighter weight that's going to be really great for embroidery. You don't want to waste your pretty threads on the bottom when you're not going to see them. And this helps to keep my tension good. So I've already gone ahead and on the side over here, I have opened up my arm for the carriage unit. That's where the hoop is going to be attached. So what I'm going to do now is come down to the bottom, not home, but I'm going to go to the next button, which is a sewing machine, and I'm going to press that. It already knows that I have opened my carriage arm. If that was not open, it would tell me to do that now. It's asking me to make sure my presser foot is attached, which it is, and just telling me to keep my hands back. So I'm going to say, okay. So it is already into position, and now I am onto the screen where I get to pick what design I'm going to embroider. I've already gone ahead and off camera, I put my hoop together here. So I am using hoop GR. This is just a very simple screw together hoop. There's a little screw right in the corner. I took that out, put my stabilizer in here. I am using a self-stick Tearaway Stabilizer. This happens to be the Floriani Perfect Stick. It's one that I like, but any one that you can find that is a self-stick and tearaway is going to be great for cork. That way you don't have to worry about trying to spray baste or do anything like that. So my hoop is ready. I'm just going to set that down for a second, and I'm going to look at my design. So I'm going to come right over here to the yellow flower. And when I go to the flower up in the top corner here, these are all of the designs that are already in my machine. So I have a lot to choose from, but I know me, and I am always in this world of embroidery designs area. This just happens to be where I pick a lot of designs from. So I'm just going to scroll through here and find something. And in looking at some of these designs, let's just click on something. This one right here, for instance, this is not going to be a great design because you can see that it is super dense. There's no spacing at all. It is just solid thread. Something like that, especially in this 3x3 inch size, that can be bad for cork. You don't want anything that's too dense because it is going to start to tear your cork, especially if it's super dense and has a lot of colors where they're going on top of another. You know, one on top of another. It doesn't always work, and it's small. If you're going to go with a dense design, you want to make sure it's a little bit larger. So I'm going to pass that one. There's, let's see, there's some fun designs in here. I've used some of these before. Let's see. Let's click on this one. That one is cute. I like this scroll, but what I'm not loving is it's one color, and I'm in a colorful mood today. I want something that has lots of colors, so I'm just going to keep scrolling. Oh, here we go. I like this one. So that looks good. That is telling me that there is like at least 5 colors on here, so I really like that. I've brought a bunch of colors with me to embroider. I like this. It is more vertical, which is what I'm looking for. I think something that's a little bit more on the horizontal is not going to look as nice on this bag. So I like this one. It is 6.8 by 4.6 in width, which is fine, but I think I want to go a little bit wider. The rows and the leaves look a little bit dense, but if I enlarge those, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the home button, and I'm going to click on this little grid right here. First thing I'm going to do is change my hoop because I am using the GR hoop right up at the top here. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to scroll, oops, right here. So I'm going to click this. It is selecting for me the 9.9 or 9.1 by 9.1 SQ23. That's not the hoop I'm using today. I'm using this one. So I'm going to tell it that's the one I want. You'll see that my box now is more rectangular than square. And now I'm going to change the size. It's already centered, so I'm not going to adjust this at all, but I'm going to go to this second box right here. And that's going to tell me that I can go larger or smaller. I can go 80% on the smaller side, or I can go up to 120. So I'm just going to max it out. All right, and say okay. I don't need to do anything else here. Any of these other buttons here, I can copy, I can rotate, I can mirror image if I wanted to go the other way. I like it as is. I think this is going to work out nicely. So I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to take a look at it here. And now it's telling me that it's 5.6 inches in width and 8.2 in height. And I think that's going to be perfect. The 5.6 is going to fit in between the handles really nicely with a little bit of room. So I'm happy with this. My hoop is all set. And because this is a self-stick tearaway, I do have to take this paper off before I can add my cork on. So I just use a pin. This is a little trick that I learned. And I'm just going to score and pull this paper off. I'm going to get as much off as I can. You can also score around the edges. All right. You don't want to use a pair of scissors for this because you don't want to rip your stabilizer. So I'm just being gentle. Okay. And now that I have the paper off, now it's nice and tacky. So it's going to hold my cork in place. And I have my cork front right here. And what I did is I just measured out where my handles are going to go. They're not sewn on yet. I don't want to do my embroidery with the handles on, but I wanted to know exactly where they were. And then I also cut my corners just so that I can kind of see about where this embroidery is going to sit. So what I like to do is I have my center marks on my cork, and I'm going to line them up. It's a little bit awkward. There we go. I'm going to take the handle off before I get ready to sew or to embroider. So I'm just lining up the little center mark that I have down here and the center mark up there. And I'm just firmly pressing that down. Make sure that that looks the way that I want it to. So now that this is in place and I have my handles just temporarily clipped in here, I'm going to just slide this under and come back here and put this in there. Okay, so now that that is all hooked in place, what I'm going to do before I decide on my colors, before I decide on anything else, is I want to check my placement. So I'm going to come up here to the third box with the little arrows, and I'm going to just come right over here to this end one. okay, and start. And that is going to show me that it is, the top corner is right up here, and it's just basting. All right, so far so good. I am a little off center. I can see it's a little bit closer on the right hand side than on the left, but with this design, I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I can move this over if I want to, but I think I'm just gonna leave it. And I do like to have this little basting part done because it's going to help to hold the cork in place. It's a very, very large basting stitch that I can very easily take out, not a problem. So even though I'm a little tiny bit off center, it's close enough for me. I'm happy with it because of the design. If I was using something like, let's say, a medallion or something that would really show off if it was off center, I would probably adjust this. I'm probably a 1/4 of an inch closer on one side than the other, but I'm totally fine with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and unclip this handle. Take this off. All right, handle is gone. And now I am ready to pick out my colors. So I'm gonna get out of this screen and I'm gonna come back here. And what I like to do is I like to hit this little flower up in the corner because that's gonna show me exactly what I'm stitching first. It's nice to see an overall so you can decide on your colors, but if you click here, the first thing, thread number 1, which is showing as like a light purpley pink, is going to be kind of in the background. So what do I want in the background? Do I want this color? Do I want to change it up? Let's see, I'm gonna go back here for a second. And actually, I'm just gonna scroll through the colors and see. Next, I'm gonna do the background of my leaves on top. All right. And it's moving the hoop because it's showing me where it would be starting if it was time for that color. It looks like I have 10 total colors that I get to choose from. And it doesn't mean that I have to choose 10. I can absolutely just do, less. I have here, let's see, 2, 4, 6. I have about 7 colors here. So I'm probably gonna duplicate a couple. Move this back into position. Now I kind of have a feel of where it's going. So it's going to be working from the scrolls to the leaves and then last to the flowers. So what do I want for the scrolls? I think I'm going to keep the pink in. I think that's going to be fine for me. I think my flower is going to be in these purples. I'm going to do this for my rose and then maybe mix in a little bit of the orange and the green and the aqua. So this is kind of my color scheme here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and let this get started. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start on number 1. I am ready to sew. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn my speed down. I just feel more comfortable when I'm going a little bit slower. It is on a table that's not the best table. And also I feel like I can watch it and monitor it a little bit better when it's going slower. That just changed my time from 47 minutes to 59 minutes. I'm totally fine. I figured I would spend about an hour here anyway. So I'm good to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this thread and I'm holding it super gently. I'm going to hit my start stop button, let it take just a couple of stitches and stop. And now I'm going to go in here and very carefully not cut the top thread, just cut that thread. And there's another little thread over here from the basting. Get that out of the way. Less threads I'll have to worry about later. And now I'm good to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit start. And I'm gonna let this embroider out, switch up my colors as needed, and I'll see you in 59 minutes. I'm in the home stretch now. I have about 30 stitches left and my embroidery will be all done. And there it is. Okay, so I just want to talk to you a little bit about what you're going to do next. Obviously, I'm going to take this off the machine right now, so let me do that. So I just unhooked that. And there is my finished embroidery. I am super, super pleased with how that came out. I've got a couple of threads that I just need to trim here, but other than that, it's good to go. So as far as the colors are concerned, if you look again on the screen, the colors that were in this embroidery originally, they had like a light purple, a lot of reds in the roses. There's some different shades of blue and green and yellow for the leaves. And what I did is I wanted to make mine look a little bit more modern and a little bit more me. This is very pretty, but it's not really my style. So I decided to play around, and I actually used less colors than I had anticipated. I had pulled a lot of purples and thought I was going to do the rose in more purple, but I decided at the last minute to go ahead and just use this bright pink as the background, and then I added on the purple on top. And for the last, I think it was stitch 9 and 10, which is just a little bit on the edge here, I used a really pretty yellow-orange kind of color. And for the leaves and the stems, I just stuck with 2 colors. If you look here, it looks like there's actually more. If you get in here close, it looks like there's actually a few different greens, but there's not. I actually just used this aqua color right here and this pretty yellowy chartreuse color. And because of the way that they overlap, you get a few different looks, but it's only using 2 colors. So I ended up using 5 colors total. There are 10 on the design itself. I just went with those 5. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop these little basting threads out. I don't need them. And if you're wondering if it's okay that I basted this because it's on cork, absolutely. This is not going to hurt the cork. Cork is actually pretty resilient, and a couple of stitches like this are not going to hurt anything. It's not going to leave any permanent holes. One thing that I love about cork is that it can be ironed. So I can take this over to the ironing board if I need to, and I can take those little tiny minuscule holes that are there out. Because of the texture in the background of the cork, it really helps to hide any little holes that don't go away. So I'm not super concerned. If you would prefer not to do that, you can test your area without doing any stitches. You don't have to baste the embroidery hoop together. You can actually just do one of the other testers in this box right here, and it will just move the foot from one corner to the next and show you where your design is, so you can still arrange things. So I'll go in here a little bit better when I'm not on camera and pull the rest of these stitches out. But they come out pretty easily. Like I said, they're enormous stitches. They're probably a 1/2 inch each, so they're coming out pretty easily. So once I have this all done, what I'm going to do before I can go on is unscrew my hoops. So I'm just going to move these out of the way so I don't knock them over. So down here on the bottom corner of my hoop is the little screw. So I'm just going to unscrew that and loosen that up. And now I can take the center part out. So I'm going to move the base part of the hoop out of my way. And I can just pull this right off. And the only thing I have left to do before I go on and do my next step, which would be adding the handles, is just to pull this off. So when it comes to this stabilizer, this is why I really like it, because it is a tearaway stabilizer. So I can just rip that off, and I can take some time and get in there and really be picky if I want to pull off more of this. There's my big basting stitch. I'll clean that up a little bit. But I don't really fuss too much with it. If there's a little bit of this left, I'm not really concerned. If this was fabric, I wouldn't worry about it either, and I would just go ahead and put my interfacing right over top of that. This little bit of extra stabilizer is not going to hurt anything in your bag. And when I turn this over here, just because I've been kind of pulling on it, I just need to give it a quick press, and I'm ready to add my handles. So once I get those on there, I did go ahead and make a pocket that I'm going to put on the opposite side. So instead of this being the front pocket, this is going to be a back pocket. or maybe I can look at it as my bag doesn't really have a front and a back. It has two really pretty sides. So this will be on one side and this will be on the other side. I'll add my handles and just continue on making my bag the way the pattern says.